With almost 400 episodes of American Dad, there's more than a couple Roger personas to compare and contrast. Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. But no time for all that. How you doing? How you been? It's time for our Roger Persona Top 10. Number 10, Ricky Spanish. Now, this will come as a controversial opinion, I'm sure. Ricky Spanish is number 10 on the list, not because I personally enjoy Ricky Spanish, but because I know Ricky Spanish is part of the lifeblood of American Dad. I know. I'm a hack fraud. I am not a real American Dad fan. I personally think episodes around Ricky Spanish are fine. Persona Assistant was fine. Ricky Spanish was fine. The persona, though, is actually pretty great. I do enjoy the Ricky Spanish, and he's just doing more and more messed up things. I appreciate what Ricky Spanish represents. I appreciate that Ricky Spanish is just this absolute menace that was so much that even Roger had to take a step back and go, oh, no, that's too much. Like, I appreciate what Ricky Spanish represents. I appreciate what Ricky Spanish does, but I have yet to see an episode featuring Ricky Spanish that I'm like, okay, this is the best American Dad can ever produce. Any episode that features Ricky Spanish in the forefront is totally okay. That being said, I love his design. I love that he's not even really based off anyone. He's got this weird design. He's got the vest. He's got the, jean shorts. He is not a menace that you would think would be one of Langley's greatest threats. And yet, he is. I also really appreciate that he's one of the few personas that actually interacts with Principal Lewis, and they have like a back and forth, like, oh, I'll get you next time, Ricky Spanish. I love that. I love that so much. I will say, without Ricky Spanish, we would not get the scene where Werner Herzog, gives us the great documentary about a butterfly in a jar of farts. Like, it's just, there is magic to any episode with Ricky Spanish in it, except the episode as a whole is usually perfectly okay. Which, in a way, perfectly encapsulates the chaotic energy of Ricky Spanish. Whenever Ricky Spanish is on the screen, he is sucking all the creativity from the rest of the episode like some sort of empath parasite. Which is why you need someone like famed organizer Jeannie Gold to stop him. It's just, Ricky Spanish is integral to the American Dad experience. I appreciate what Ricky Spanish represents, but he's at the bottom of the list for a reason. Number 9, Jenny from the Block. This one is a bit of a more meta pick. I don't necessarily like Jenny from the Block as a character or a persona, but I adore the fact that like everyone except for Barry and Snot know that that is just Roger. And the family is, odd about it. They're disgusted by it. They're just like, ew. I don't know, my cousin that I've never mentioned before. And Roger's like, yeah, no one's paying attention. No one's keeping up. And I love that. I love that this is when they really started to turn into, Roger is always doing personas. And there's no real special voice for Jenny. There's no special element for Jenny. She is actually one of Roger's most basic personas. But I love that he's setting up an actual emotional attachment to Snot for Jenny's character. And then at the end, he's just like, I can move really, really fast. And he's running in front of the bus and pretending, you get splattered all over with the power of jam and texting Bob Saget. It's just, there's so much charm to the Jenny from the Block episode. And it all hinges on how Roger plays Jenny from the Block. And that's such an important detail, that Roger is acting, but Roger is such a method actor, such a creative that has to juggle all of these ideas all at once, that they start to take on minds of their own. They start to take on emotions of their own. So then you have Steve trying to help Snot and Jenny reconcile, because why not? We've already crossed the threshold. We have hit the event horizon of Roger personas. Why not make it that much weirder? It's just, It is such a charm to American Dad on full display with Jenny from the Block. It's simple, yet artful, you know? Number 8, Roy Rogers McFreely. This one, I love the character, I love the meta, I love everything about it. Roy Rogers McFreely is one of my favorite episodes of American Dad, and a lot of that has to do with how Roger plays Roy Rogers McFreely. I mean, the neighborhood has no idea who he is. They are completely fooled. But Haley, Steve, Stan, they all know Roy Rogers is just Roger. And the way they have that back and forth, the way they have their feud throughout the neighborhood is terrific. And it shows off that Roger just has this natural charisma to get people on his side when he doesn't get what he wants. And I love that. I love that we have such a meta episode of American Dad so early on in the show, and it's not even my favorite of those kinds of episodes. But whenever we have an episode where Roger is, I guess technically, the main antagonist as a persona, like when he was the senator that Steve tries to stop, there is that extra level of charm. In Family Guy, if, Brian is the antagonist to whatever Stewie's doing, it just feels odd and weird and doesn't really work. But in American Dad, if Roger's doing it, you can blame it on persona. You can blame it on Roger just being a weird guy. He's an alien. He's allowed to be odd. But then at the end, there's such a wholesome idea of just Roger wants to be heard and he's willing to make up an entire crazy persona, take over the HOA and be this crazy, garbage collecting, fire hydrant whizzing spectacle. He just works. And I appreciate that by the end, Stan has resolved his issues with Roger. They've made up. But Roger still uses Roy Rogers McFreely just because he likes the persona. That has a charm all its own, and I really appreciate it. Number 7, Tom Yabo. American Stepdad is just a really, really sweet episode. The B story, fantastic. Love Steve and the boys doing their own thing with the Fast and the Furious script. That's great. But this is kind of where the magic of the show is. When Roger is Tom Yabo and he becomes Stan's stepdad, Stan knows Tom Yabo is Roger. He expects him to be scheming, to have some kind of ulterior motive that is just going to absolutely devastate his mom, ruin everything, get his attic back. But Tom doesn't do that. Tom is this replacement father figure for Stan, because that is who Tom Yabo is. Tom Yabo isn't just a Roger persona. He is a way for Stan to heal, and I adore that. And it's great that even at the end, when Tom Yabo is, taken out, the mending has been done. Stan learns to appreciate Roger because Roger showed that he appreciates Stan just through a persona. They brought back a muscle car together. They did all kinds of things. He taught him how to mow better, like a real stepdad would. There is such a human charm to American Stepdad. And it's so weird hearing Seth MacFarlane be a stepdad, a father figure to Seth MacFarlane, but he does it so earnestly that you believe it. You are absolutely on board for anything that happens through the episode. And sure, you always expect the rug pull of, aha, and there it is. There's how he's getting the attic back. But the thing that sets American Dad apart is that there's never that moment. Till the end, Tom Yabo loves Stan and believes in Stan, and it shows that Roger is happy to be a part of the family and loves the family. And it's, again, if you compare it to like Family Guy, when's the last time we had a good Peter and Brian story? They still have great Stan and Roger episodes because their dynamic has never changed. They have been friends since Area 51. They have always been together. And so to have this new angle for their friendship is terrific. I love Tom Yabo. I think he was great for Stan and made for one of the best episodes of the Fox era. Number 6, Professor Longbottom / Coach Grundy. I was never expecting to love the professor and the coach as much as I did. Roger creating another persona because he has writer's block and wants an excuse to not have to keep doing something. I also love the fact that Haley knows that her creative writing professor is Roger, but she thinks this is Roger as one of his best selves, and he actually intentionally inspires her. It's again like the idea of the personas becoming more than Roger, and I love that. I love that even Roger struggles to keep up with all the personas he set up through the years. And to have these two that are largely only in this episode, and him having to jump back and forth, is great. Yeah, you kind of saw it in Eight Fires when he was Francis Malmont and his, Nebuchadnezzar and whatever. But this very much shows it was not a one-off thing. They are aware of the rules they have set up for Roger, and they play within them unless they think they can get away with it. I also love that Rogu dresses up as Professor Longbottom just so you can kind of imitate it. I don't know. There's a lot of love there. I love that Haley is trying to show him it's worth sticking with this character, this persona, to not give up on it, to do the, God-fearing football coach that never swears. It's so fun. There is so much charm. And the fact that came from, season 18? That's incredible. And, the entire family knows. The entire family knows it's just Roger. And they are completely like, don't do that to yourself. Come on. But, Haley's just like, no. He's legit. He's the real deal. But then to have, the professor that's writing about Old Faithful and the coach that goes to every college town to open up a new Grundy's bar restaurant. It's such specific charm that makes American Dad as great as it is. And I think the professor and the coach is a wonderful example of that. And Professor Longbottom and Coach Grundy are just easily the best duality Roger personas of all time. Number 5, Mr. Vanderhill. This one's got meta to it. It's a great persona. I wrote a fan fiction about if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles go to college and the dean closes the local pizza joint and they do not take it well. The fact that Mr. Vanderhill is a persona that has existed at that country club for years and is one of the personas that Stan can't see through, but Steve does, and Steve finds out that, Lisa Silver was actually a Roger persona, that's great. That is so funny, and it sets you up for future, twists on that meta idea. They can always just go, oh, well, that's the one persona no one recognizes. And that works. And then he reverse Anna Nicole Smith, his dead wife. That is so dumb and so Roger in the best possible way. It is a character that fits Roger perfectly, and I love how they bring him to life as this eccentric old man that everyone just thinks is rich and annoying, and there's no way he could be an alien. It's just, it works. It just works. That's all I have to say on Mr. Vanderhill. Mr. Vanderhill was the opening of the gates. After Stanny Tendergrass, they could take Roger in so many more directions, even if it's just based off, a 20-second scene. This episode was the perfect pillar for Roger personas to build off of after this point. Mr. Vanderhill was a necessary persona for every other persona that came after him. I adore Mr. Vanderhill. He has some of the best quotable lines, and I really appreciate that even though Steve saw through him, he's just like, come with me, Steve. Work with me. I'll make you very rich. You can live a summer of luxury. Don't even sweat it. That is the perfect way to make Roger an antagonist. And when his persona comes off and Stan sees it's him, he's stunned for a second, and then he sees him put the face back on and goes, oh, Mr. Vanderhill. That's great. That is such a small attention to detail that elevates the show as a whole. Mr. Vanderhill is amazing. Number 4, Syngent St. John. I think this one's literally just because I love the episode so much. I mean, it is one of my favorite episodes, bar none, and so much of that has to do with Roger getting the egg madness as soon as he finds out that egg madness is a thing. I love Sinjette St. John. I love that he's super annoying to everyone. I love that Steve very obviously knows it's Roger and he's trying to stop him to save the eggs, even if Roger turns into a thick-ass snake. It's beautiful. Now, am I just a little partially incredibly biased because the B story is easily the best B story of the entire show? Yeah, probably a little bit. But the fact that they managed to tie it into the A story where Steve is fighting Roger is amazing. I love the, if you're getting kidnapped, you should eat something first. It's just, I love this woman. It's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And if you haven't noticed, like, for most of these picks, none of them really do a voice. None of them are really like an exorbitant character. They're just sort of Roger in a costume, and that's it. And I love that you have Roger just pestering these egg collectors, and Frank Langella is just absolutely done with him. Can't stand it at all. Which just in my book makes him that much better. If you can, piss off Skeletor, you're doing something right. It's a good episode. It's a good episode because Roger has a very unique persona that anytime Roger can get any kind of madness, I'm here for it. Sun madness, egg madness, they're all great. Number 3, Gina Lavetti. Again, it's the meta, but I really love that Francine acknowledges, and Roger acknowledges, that she's not there to work with Roger and help Roger. She's there to help her friend, Gina Lavetti, and is willing to do anything to help Gina, and it's very much Roger's persona taking on a life of her own, and just wanting to make jeans for women her size, even though, obviously next week none of this is gonna matter, but it's such a great device for an episode. Gina Lavetti is such an interesting idea for Roger. Roger knows she's not real, Francine knows she's not real, but Francine knows that she let down her not real friend and wants to be better. She wants to help with her passions, even if, again, they're very vapid passions. They're very basic ideas. And all she really needed was someone that would support her, and it's so dumb in such a smart way. If they didn't acknowledge that Roger knew it wasn't real and Francine knew it wasn't real, that would be one thing. That would be like, oh, so this isn't going anywhere. But they treat it as it being legit. And I love that. I love that, again, they're experimenting well into the TBS era at this point and creating something great. And, the coordinates. Well, I love the jeans, but they have me just going 19, 36, 24. Like, that's great. The giant jeans that tell you that confidence is sexy. There's so much to love, and Gina is a wonderful catalyst for everything that happens in that episode. Number 2, Sydney Huffman. I just need to say that the difference between number 3 and number 2 is night and day. The gap between them is so vast, and there's really only one reason why. Sydney Huffman is arguably a perfect Roger persona. We don't get a lot of Roger episodes, like just Roger episodes. And I think that's largely because you can't really have an episode like that after the one that got away. How do you one-up an episode that is just so perfect? Not only is Seth MacFarlane doing a special voice for this persona, very, Jimmy Stewart-esque, oh, maybe he's dyslexic and mad at Disney. Sydney Huffman is and was a perfect persona. He went from just being an excuse for Roger to look at some gloves to being this, Bible editing, good guy, former naval officer who he loves Johnny Appleseed and his wonderful tree collection that gets violated. Sydney Huffman and the one that got away was when, as someone that took, writing courses in college and everything, I realized the creativity at work on American Dad. American Dad is a series that treats the characters as if they are living, breathing people, and that allows them to go in more and more exaggerated directions. Sydney Huffman being a foil and a pseudo-antagonist for Roger is perfect, because it is a Roger persona that just wants to live his own life. He's not trying to get in the way. He's not scheming anything. He has his girl and he gives her dentine ice and treats her nice. Like he's just a good guy. And Roger can't have that. Good guys cramp his style. And it's such a fun reminder that Roger is not a good person inherently. He will do things for people he cares about, but he will very rarely do the objectively good thing. He will still do things that are within his interests, within his parameters. And the one that got away is something special. And Sidney Huffman was a game changer persona for American Dad moving forward. It is arguably the reason we have Ricky Spanish or Persona Assistant or any of these more creative personas for Roger is because they experimented with Sidney Huffman and saw that it could be done. That these personas weren't just a way for Roger to slip into society, but were becoming characters in their own rights. They branched out, they experimented, and because of that, American Dad was changed forever. And number 1, Raider Dave! I've spoken a lot about, episodes of shows that prove and justify why a show should exist. Episodes like Rabbit Ears or Gold Top Nuts. But very rarely do I talk about characters that justify a show's existence. And I think as Sidney Huffman opened the world of American Dad, we need to remember that all roads end at Raider Dave. Whether it's a post-apocalyptic adventure or just trying to be a dentist's wife, Raider Dave is the persona that will always come out. You can go in any direction and you will always end up eventually at Raider Dave. Raider Dave is the Omnimon of every Greymon Digivolution line. That is a nerdy subject. Go on, mention Susanomon. Make me look bad, you weeb. Is this a joke answer? Yeah, pretty much. But also, who doesn't love Raider Dave? Raider Dave is less a persona and more a well-crafted joke. He is a crafted joke that no matter what situation you're in, if you just get the Raider Dave, it works. It absolutely sings. It's like after Roger passes the bar, he'll still say, dive on in. And it's those recurring jokes that makes American Dad so special. What makes it work. You are rewarded for watching more and more of the show. And having Raider Dave means if you don't know anything about him, if you don't know, where he started from or when he was first introduced, you still have the #1 Raider superfan, Raider Dave. Raider Dave works as a one-off joke, as a recurring joke. He works when you go high, he works when you go low. All personas end at and start with Raider Dave. Raider Dave is eternal. Raider Dave is forever. Raider Dave is the abyss that stares back. All glory to Raider Dave. We are all Raider Dave. And there we have it. That was my top 10 Roger personas. Anything think I was right on? Wrong on? What are your favorite personas? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, consider liking, subscribing, and telling your friends we're out here. It's baffling to me that we're almost at 400 episodes of American Dad, and there's just so much more to love. There's so many Roger personas, and I remember a time when Roger didn't have personas. It's so great to see how much the show has evolved and become its own beast through the years. What started as an attempt to recapture that Family Guy magic has turned into a beast all its own. An icon of witty commentary and funny references, usually centered around everyone's favorite gray blob of an alien. I mean, they made a Leon the Professional reference with them. It's great. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. And if you want to support the channel, consider joining our Patreon or membership program today. $2 a month gets you special polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Yeah! Look at it. Gaze upon its glory. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember, stay strong, stay you. Remember that you matter, and a rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one hell of a wave a-coming. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.